Hey guys, welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. Welcome to the Critical Thinking True Crime channel. Any idea what the number 6 clue could be? Any thoughts on that topic? Alan Gregory says there are lots of rumors on Kiely still. Yeah, I must say, I hope that that's going to be sorted out. Like, I hope there's going to be a report that's going to finalize all of this. Yeah, I agree. And Deborah, you're gonna kind of get a deeper sense of exactly that in this analysis. So any thought what the sixth clue can be? I mean, obviously there's a hint in the image behind me. Any thoughts on that? Terry Dean, good to see you. So this is quite a strange clue in the sense that it's something that actually points towards something else. So the clue is a insight into something else, if that makes sense. So I'm going to kind of go through a script that I've prepared. I'm going to be referring to actual vehicles that have gone into water, 3 different incidents. I've put links to all of those incidents in the description. I really recommend you go and watch each of those. It's fascinating, it's terrifying, it's troubling, but it's also insightful. So the answer to the question, what is the number clue sort of about? It has to do with Kylie's shoes. Now, it may or may not be that what appeared to be white sneakers in the last photo are the same shoes the Adventures with Purpose diver Nick Rinn mentions during his underwater sortie in Prosser Lake, right? So let's just bring that up. So do you guys remember that point in the documentary where he says, I see a pair of shoes? Now, the thing to note here is where he is alongside the vehicle when he sees it. This is the rear driver's side door. That's the partition to the hatch area. So he's sort of in between. He's sort of on the boundary between those 2 areas. And this is when he sees the pair of shoes. Now, I think one can ask, what were those pair, what was that pair of shoes? And I just want to show you guys the last photo. Just bring that up again. Because one wonders, was this what he saw? Did he see these shoes? Now, obviously, these shoes were taken hours before she disappeared, hours before what happened to her. It was taken at 6 p.m. So I don't know about you guys, but I kind of assume that she was wearing these jeans to the party and this blouse and this belt and these shoes. That could be incorrect. Maybe she changed her outfits completely. Maybe she would, but at 6 p.m. is quite late. Bear in mind, she apparently got to the party at 10 p.m., right? So I think it's a fair assessment to say maybe she was wearing these sneakers when she was at the party, right? It doesn't really matter either way. I mean, if she was wearing other shoes, the point is we are speculating about the shoes at this point. And as you're about to see, it's not the shoes themselves that are the importance of the clue, but what the shoes reveal. If anything, the important clue is where he sees the shoes, right? That's kind of the important thing. So again, notice Rinn's position when he makes the comment, right? It's kind of live in terms of the footage that's being recorded. When he says, I see a pair of shoes, that is when he actually does see them, right? And where is he? He's alongside the rear passenger window, as I said, on the driver's side. That is the one that's half open, and he's moving towards the window at the very back of the vehicle. So I think it's unclear based entirely on this image, on this footage, whether Rin sees the shoes through the rear window or through the back window. It's difficult to say exactly where he sees the shoes, right? One thing we do know is that although Rin refers to shoes plural, right? Notice he says, I see a pair of shoes, which is a kind of a double confirmation. A pair means two, shoes also means two, right? He's not seeing one shoe, right? That's kind of a double confirmation that he is seeing two shoes. What is quite interesting is one shoe was apparently attached to Kiely's foot while the other was off. So it's not clear whether he didn't see that, how can I put it, that there was one shoe there, and one assumes it's against something, I guess. In other words, like against the roof, because the vehicle's upside down. One would also assume if it's dark and he's looking down that he can see a white sneaker. Is that a fair assumption? This has actually been brought up elsewhere. Some hours ago, Jared from Adventures with Purpose went onto a channel called 10 to Life. I think it's around about 30 minutes into it. And he said, quote, from my understanding, Nick was able to identify that there was a shoe on her foot. Right? That was in answer to a question, was she fully clothed? Let me put that quote in the comments so you guys can just be absolutely sure about it. Just for you guys in chat, good to see you, Sharon, Perry, Scott Tomlinson. I'm going to kind of go through my script, go through my spiel, and then I'll circle back to deal with comments and so on. Okay. So Jared was asked, was she fully clothed? That was the question. His answer was, from my understanding, Nick was able to identify that there was a shoe on her foot. If you think about it, it's a somewhat cryptic answer to a simple question. I think if the question is, was someone fully clothed, wouldn't you say, well, the answer is yes or no? So all that he does mention is he says that there was a shoe on her foot. So presumably by saying there's a shoe on one foot or on her foot, that's almost implying there wasn't a shoe on the other foot. Again, we could be wrong in what we're thinking here. Maybe if AWP are watching, they can set us straight, if it's erroneous. But in my opinion, when Nick Rin was saying, it's suspicious, call the authorities, I think the first thing he would have said was that she wasn't clothed if she wasn't clothed. You get my meaning? So if you are wondering what is the actual answer to was she fully clothed, if you just think back to where Nick Rin appears traumatized, he's sort of catching his breath, and there's sort of this profound, poignant moment where he's registered what he's just seen. He doesn't have any words. He's certainly taking a moment. You would think that as part of his rationale, because he says it's suspicious, call the authorities, he mentions a few things, right? I think one of the first things would have been she wasn't clothed, if she wasn't clothed. Instead, Nick focuses on where Kiely was situated in the vehicle. That is what he finds suspicious, not what she was or wasn't wearing. Do you follow what I'm saying? The number 6 clue isn't so much the shoes, though, but the fact that the shoes suggest in which way Kiely was oriented in her last moments, right? That's very important to give us an idea of what was going on, where was she, what was her mindset, all that kind of thing, right? So it may not be apparent at first, but when we think about the shoes, it's telling us a little bit about Kiely's position in the vehicle in a definitive way, right? This image here where Rin says, I see a pair of shoes. Think about where those shoes are and then think about where Kiely is in the vehicle if her shoes are there, right? So the fact that her shoes were on the driver's side, right now, if you had to pull, not back, but pull to that side, so to the left side as you're looking at this image, sorry, the right side, as you pull to the right side towards the front of the vehicle, you are going to the driver's side, basically where the steering wheel is, right? In other words, her feet are on the side of the vehicle where the steering wheel is. I'm just in terms of one side of the vehicle versus the other, right? That's important, and we're going to see why. The reason is the other end of Kiely, so not the shoe end, the other end was on the other side of the vehicle. And in other words, her torso, her face, her arms, etc., seem to be directed to the other side of the vehicle, away from the steering wheel. Now remember, Rin only confirmed that he saw Kiely once he was on the other side, basically the end of the vehicle furthest from the steering wheel. And I think it's important to be explicit about what we're talking about there. So if you look at this image, do you remember he came around the side, right? So he saw the shoes kind of on that side. Let me just see where I am. He saw the shoes on that side, out of picture, lower down, I guess. And then he swam around that position, right? He passes this window, the hatch window, doesn't seem to see anything or anyone there. And it's only once he comes around the other side, you can almost see through here. You can almost see the window through there. Does that make sense? It seems like slightly transparent. But it's only once he comes around that side that he says human remains. And what that, I think, suggests, and I could be wrong, is that she is facing, her feet are facing to the steering wheel slightly diagonally, and her head and arms and torso are facing towards the furthest most window at the back, but not the hatch window. That makes sense. Does that make sense to you guys? It may be easy to think about by looking at a simple sketch. So it can be quite confusing because it's upside down and so on. So I'm going to show you guys a little sketch that I put together, right? So in this sketch, I know it's a very, it's very, what's the word, crude. It's very simple. This is basically this rectangle is approximate to the vehicle. That's the steering wheel. This is if the vehicle was the right side up, this top image. And so there is the window that is half down or a third up or 2/3 down, right, on the driver's side. And on the opposite side, this is the side where the glass smashed out or the window open. That's that side, right? Bear in mind, this is the vehicle on the right side up. This is not the way Nick Rin found it. So what I'm suggesting is that when Nick swam alongside this window, he saw shoes somewhere around here. It could have been more that way, but somewhere around here, right? Then he swam around the side here. Can you guys see my cursor there? He swam around this side, didn't seem to see anything here. And I think that's because she wasn't right against this window. But as soon as he came around to this point, can you see my cursor? That's when he saw Kiely, right? And so I'm suggesting the clue that this indicates is that she was facing in this sort of direction, right? And you might say, well, so what? So what if it's that? I think there's an important thing to extrapolate from that, which we'll get to in a moment. Now, obviously, this graphic here, this little sketch here, is more accurate to what Nikrin actually found. So this is the upside down version. In upside down, the wheels would be obviously facing the surface of the water. The steering wheel is now on this side, right? The closed window is now on that side, right? But the half open or a third open window is over there. That is where the Nikrin finds the shoes or sees the shoes. Does that make sense? It's sort of in this. It's sort of in this area. It could be there. It could be a little bit more that way. And then he goes around this area. As I say, he doesn't see anything here. But as soon as he comes around here, that's when he identifies Kiely. Does that make sense? Right? And so just to be explicit, this side, so her feet are facing that side, her head is facing this side. This side is away from the steering wheel. That's the first point. And the other point is it's on the same side as the window that is broken on this side. Do you guys follow? I know it's not the best sketch in the world. So to reiterate, the lower figure is how Adventures with Purpose actually found the vehicle upside down. Kiely's feet were pointing in the same direction towards the same side of the vehicle as the side where the steering wheel is. Can you guys see that? Can you guys see that? Steering wheel is on this side. Her feet were also on that side. Her face and torso were facing the back of the vehicle. So there's the back of the vehicle over there. And she's directed basically towards the back of the vehicle, right? Almost the opposite direction to the steering wheel. She's directed to the back of the vehicle. But also the same side of the vehicle as the broken window, which is this window. She's on the same side where this window was broken. So I don't know whether her body would have been at this angle. I don't know if I've depicted the angle accurately. Was it more square with the hatch? But what I do know is, as I say, when Nikrin swam along the hatch window, when he swam along here, he didn't seem to see anything, right? He didn't seem to see anything. That's just the point I'm trying to make. When he swam along there, until he came around it. Once he came around it and he saw through that side window, that's when he saw her. So I would suggest she wasn't fully contained in the hatch area, which I think also makes sense. Now, I've kind of heard people saying that she was in the trunk, or she was totally like in the back kind of thing. And I think this may be a more accurate way of saying it. I could be wrong. You know, maybe I'm wrong in thinking about it this way. I'm just saying I'm looking at the observations, trying to make sense of it. And does this make sense of it? So let me just put that up. Sorry, that's not the one that I'm trying to put up. It's this one. It's a good question from Astute Recruit. What was Kiely's height? It's a definitely good question. So I want to now kind of make my case a little bit further. I think it makes sense, this orientation, because when the vehicle filled with water at the front passenger seats, even if she was trying to break the window, even if she was, that was her intention, and even if she succeeded, and if she wanted to exit through that window, I think it's unlikely she would have hit the water, reacted immediately. I'm talking about I think it's unlikely she would have hit the water with a vehicle, reacted immediately, swiveled in her seat, and kicked out the window within 30 to 40 seconds. And I'm going to show you some footage where someone does exactly that. So what I'm trying to say is, I don't think she hit the water, reacted immediately, swiveled in her seat, and kicked out the window, like all in the seamless movement. I don't think that happened. What I am suggesting is she may have gotten halfway through that process. She may even have kicked the window out while it was still above water, but then shortly after that, the water likely gushed in. Now, you might argue with that and say, if she managed to kick the window out, why wouldn't she just go out the window? She just kicked it out. Well, the problem is, if enough time has gone by, then water would be coming in. And so it's quite hard to exit the point while the water is coming in. The water is not coming in a slow, sedate stream. It's gushing in, right? And you may think, yeah, well, it's not going to be that difficult. And so I want to show you guys exactly what that looks and feels like. I found this video on YouTube, and it's a really powerful demonstration of what Kiely would have felt and so on from the inside. So let's quickly go to that. I think it's this one. Let's just do that. So there she enters the water. Now she acts really decisively, takes off her seatbelt, rolls down the window, and she's out. Right? And she's out. So all of that is obviously when you know what's going to happen, right? So that is when you have the foresight, and it's obviously daylight. Now, what I want you to sort of wait for and focus on is this moment, right? I want you to look out for this moment where there's a camera obviously inside the vehicle. The vehicle's hit the water, and now the vehicle's sinking. Now, what I'm trying to say is, I don't think Kiely acted as assertively and quickly as this lady. This lady was able to roll down the window and get out. Kiely couldn't have rolled down the window. They were electric windows, so that option wouldn't have been available. So what I want you to imagine is Kiely is now in this vehicle, and she's trying to kick out the glass. And maybe she gets some, what's the word? She has some success in doing that. But is she going to have enough time to kick the glass out and then get out before the water rushes in? Also, when the water rushes in, do you think she will be able to go out? That's the question. So let's have a look. Let's go back to that. So imagine Kiely is basically sitting around about here, and she's got her feet directed to the window, and she's got trying to kick it out, right? From this point. Is she going to have enough time to kick it out and get out the vehicle before the water streams in? Bear in mind, this vehicle, the window is still above the water level, right? So let's have a look. You can see there's the water. This window's open. Not sure why it's doing that. Pretty weird. Well, okay, it's taking a lot longer than it takes when you really play it. Wonder if I shouldn't. Okay, you can see it starting to bubble over there. There it's starting to stream in, right? And now watch how it gushes in. Look at that. Look how quickly it gushes in, right? So that's kind of what I'm getting at is basically just to say, there's a certain pause, there's a certain amount of time where nothing really happens, where she had all the time in the world to turn herself, to orientate herself, to start kicking the window, but then suddenly that would change. And then suddenly, if she wasn't out by that time, do you see, it would kind of be too late. It would be too late to get out there. The other thing that I think is worth noting is if she had her phone, if she had illumination, once the water streamed through the window, I don't know if she would still have had that illumination. Is that clear? So from the moment the Cadillac hits the water, that's at 1:45 in this clip, to the moment it floods, 2:25, it's roughly 40 seconds. The old lady who is filmed driving the vehicle doesn't panic. She unbuckles her seatbelt and she quickly winds down a window and quickly, easily, effectively escapes. When you look at this footage from her, you think, wow, it's actually not a big deal. It's not difficult. It's a lot more straightforward, of course, when it's anticipated, when it's in broad daylight, and the windows work. If you just took out the windows, this lady would be in a world of difficulty, right? If you also took away daylight, this woman would be in a world of difficulty. And if you added to that, it happened to her by surprise, now you've got quite a lot counting against you. Do you guys see that? So if you watch the footage again and you imagine the old lady having to kick out the glass, she might get it right, but those precious 10 to 15 seconds out of the 40 seconds she's got are going to mean facing that deluge as it gushes in, or she's got to try and beat that deluge, right? She's got to kick it out and then turn in that seat and get out the window before the water gets in, right? If the water is streaming in, do you think she has any chance of swimming through it? If it was you and the water was streaming in, would you do that? Would you sort of take it on? I wouldn't. And if you didn't or couldn't, what would be the next course of action? I think it would be the abyss strategy, which is you get yourself as high as possible into the air bubble and you contemplate an alternative strategy. By the way, this is from The Abyss. Let's just bring that up. So that's from the movie The Abyss, and basically they are in a submarine, a submersible that's, I think, leaking and it's filling up with water. And so what do? They start getting as high up. There you can see the ceiling of it. They get as high up into this vessel as they can. And what are they doing? They're following the air bubble, right? The air pocket. Yeah, I think it would be very hard not to panic. Sorry, I'd panic. Yeah, it's a great movie. The Abyss is a very good movie. Setlik says, I voted no. I wouldn't be able to. Let's see where those votes are right now. 20% say that they would get out. 34% say no. 46% say hard to say. That's quite an interesting breakdown there. So I think what would happen in a situation where she tries to kick out the glass, she succeeds, but she uses up her time window, is that she will, from that point on, follow the air bubble, right? And start thinking about an alternate strategy, right? I'm not going to be able to go down and out that window now. What else could I do, right? And of course, at this point, precious time's also going by. Again, the advantage they have here in terms of this abyss situation is light. It's highly likely once the water gushed in that Kiely lost her light source. If you're not sure, if you think that that's speculative, watch that video again. As I said, the link is in the description, of the water rushing into that vehicle, and think, do you think if you had a phone in your hand, you could keep it out of range of the water? Also, do you think that would be your sort of first priority wouldn't your instinct be to try and just swim and to get away from the water and to breathe, right? Or you're going to be thinking of your phone. It's quite a tough one, that, but the main question is, even if you were trying to keep your phone dry, would you be able to, given that the vessel you're in is turning, and that you're in a panic? You're not acting, you're not able to move. Your surroundings aren't uniform, so it's you're struggling to get from one position to another. So we now go to something a little bit different. We go to Mythbusters, so it's this episode. And in this episode, we see how even when it's not a surprise, your vehicle ditching in water, getting out is quite a challenge. In this experiment, after just 40 seconds, the driver is completely submerged underwater, even with all the windows closed. So you might say, you know, you might say maybe the window broke when the vehicle hit the bottom or something like that. That's not to say that well, in this case, all the windows were closed and it also took 40 seconds. The water comes through sort of the engine and out the dashboard area. Bear in mind, when you turn on your air conditioner, it's getting air from the outside. Well, water can come through that route as well. So to reiterate, in this experiment, after just 40 seconds, the driver is completely submerged underwater, even with all the windows closed. And this is a situation where he stays in the driving position, right? And you've kind of got to ask yourself, if water was filling up around you, would you just stay where you were? Would you just sit there? Would you sort of look at the window and would you just sit there? So this is another screen grab from Mythbusters, and you can see here, this is actually the line of the water, and this is how far it is basically filled up. His windscreen is totally underwater, and the water is about to, you know, pass over his chest and over his face, right? You guys see that? So in Adam's experiment, the time between the vehicle filling up with water, as I said, this one with all windows closed, and Adam asking the diver to feed him oxygen is just under 1 minute, right? It's got 1 minute. This is actually the moment where he basically gives up trying to escape and takes oxygen from the diver, right? So to be kind of explicit here, he fails in trying to get out the vehicle. And this is where it's daylight. He knows what's about to happen, and he nevertheless fails to escape the vehicle. And what's interesting is there's another Mythbusters that is slightly different, where the vehicle tips over. So you can see Adam is very challenged by this. He thinks, you know what, I can definitely survive this. I'm gonna give it another try. And then guess what happens? Do you think he does survive the second try? So there's another Mythbusters episode where Adam elects to kick open a door. He decides, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait for the entire vehicle to submerge, the entire vehicle to fill up with water. I'm going to just be calm, hold my breath. When the pressure is equal, that's when I'm going to choose my moment. I'm going to push the door open and I'm going to be able to escape. That's the strategy. Do you think it works? Do you think he's able to successfully get out of the situation? So this is kind of a different scenario, a different episode. You can see he sort of drives off the edge of a container, looks like, and then he tries to put his plan into action. This is another screen grab I don't know if you can see what's going on here. Here he is upside down, right? He's upside down, and his strategy is that he wants to kick open the door on the passenger side, right? But this is the situation he finds himself in. So it's like, I want to do that, but it's a little bit difficult to kind of put that plan into action, right? So what is immediately obvious, firstly, is that kicking out the passenger window makes more sense, or in his case, kicking open the passenger door, but also how tricky it is for Adam to get into position once the vehicle has flipped. So what's really interesting about this scenario is he's got the right strategy. Also, he knows in advance what's about to happen. He's got the right strategy, and nevertheless he struggles to get out of the sort of driver's position so that he can get in the position to put his feet against the passenger door. Does that make sense? And so this is another screen grab from a little bit later on in the video. There is some way out of the situation that he was in. Right? Can you guys see that? So this person over here is a diver who's sort of assisting him. There is, I guess, an oxygen tank if he does not succeed. Here he's trying to get his feet out of the driver's console area, and he wants to obviously get them to that side, but he's upside down, right? Bear in mind, he can see where he is. It's daylight. He doesn't need his phone. And he's just trying to change his position so he can start putting his plan into action. Okay, John, I'm not sure if you're following this episode anyway. So then he attempts to kick out the door. So he eventually gets his feet where they need to be, and he tries to kick out the door, and he fails. And Adam does exactly what you'd expect after that. So let me ask you guys a question. The moment after he kicks out the door or tries to kick out the door and he finds he can't, what do you think happens next? What do you think happens next? He tries to kick out the door, or kick open the door, push open the door with his feet. He's tried to, open the door, I guess, with his hands. Now he pushes it with his feet, but he fails. What do you think he does immediately after that? Well, he basically adopts just trying to see where it is. He adopts the abyss approach, which is follow the air pocket, right? Where is it? Is it that one? Anyway, it's this particular image here. He follows the air pocket. So he's failed in terms of his position to get out where he was. And now he's basically just following the air pocket. He's not going to continue trying to kick it at the door while he's underwater, right? So what he's doing now is he's following the pocket of air as it moves from the front up to the back, right? What you're seeing here at his back is the roof of the vehicle, right? So what he's basically following is the smooth contours of the roof, but because the vehicle is slanted downwards, the ceiling isn't the roof of the vehicle, it's the back of the vehicle. That's where Adam, now in survival mode, is focused. He keeps looking up towards the back of the vehicle where the air is, and of course, during the day, where the light is coming from. This is another screen grab from that video. Sorry, it's not that one, it's this one. Right, and if you look at that, there's actually kind of a script there where he says, I looked out the back window and I can see daylight, which is really pretty, right? So that's the view, obviously during the day, looking through the back window, right? And obviously there's water on the other side of that back window, right? Do you see that? And then he says this. He says, there's daylight, which is really pretty. It's tantalizing. And so he's in this position of, he's in this air pocket and he's looking to the back of the vehicle and he's thinking, wow, I wish I was there. I wish I could get there, right? Adam experiences something else that you might not expect. The air inside the vehicle is being squeezed. You can actually feel the air pressure increasing inside the vehicle. Also, the vehicle flips onto its back while underwater. That just shows you that it is quite normal for that to happen. There you can see the vehicle has sort of flipped on its back, right? Let's just do that. So what's actually taking place is while he's moving in the vehicle itself is also doing all sorts of movement. Sometimes it's vertical, sometimes it's sort of rotating. The vehicle is trying to find its equilibrium in water. It's not a stable surface. It's not like the vehicle is on land in a fixed position. The vehicle is sort of moving, right? Have you ever been in a drum and someone sort of rolls the drum with you in it? I know I did. I was in that situation as a kid. So anyway, in this simulation, despite being prepared for it, Adam actually fails to exit the vehicle through the doors during an approximately 60-second window. So in fact, in both of these Mythbuster experiments, Adam fails. Even though he's a smart guy, even though he has a strategy going in, and it's sort of daylight, and he knows it's about to happen. So he's got a strategy. He's prepared. He knows what's about to happen just before it happens, and he fails regardless both times. So once topside, he admits that panic and disorientation got the better of him. And this I found really quite powerful, is the exit interview in a way. You know, it's like Adam coming back from the dead saying, this is why I died, right? We wish we could speak to Kiely and say, Kiely, what did you go through? What happened, right? Well, in a way, this is the closest we can get to it, which is this guy, this Mythbuster Adam, going through this experience and then saying exactly what he experienced. Like, why couldn't you get out? What happened? And so he says he admits panicking. So even though he could see, and even though he knew what was happening, and even though he was prepared for it, he said, I struggled to stay calm. He admits feeling disoriented, so that's including in the day. And he said that the panic and disorientation got the better of him. Bear in mind, all of this is to a stopwatch. It's like a race against time. So you must stay calm, but race against time. He also acknowledges that he had no idea which way was up or where he was in the vehicle. Again, bear in mind, this is from someone prepped ahead of time for what is about to happen, plus it's broad daylight. Now, three things that I think are broadly the same between Adam and Kiely are, number one, they both abandon the driver's seat. That they begin their strategy in the driver's seat. Number two, they follow the air pocket. Number three, the time the vehicle submerges is quicker than expected. Now, in terms of C, it starts off deceptively slowly. You also see it with that video that I showed you earlier. It starts off deceptively slowly, and you think, oh, I've got lots of time. Then it fills up at a deceptively slow pace as well, only to fill up faster and faster at a deceptively quick pace. The Mythbuster episode also concludes saying, getting out is a lot harder when you're upside down. Now, if you imagine Adam in this simulation simply not getting out, where does he end up? Do you guys follow what I'm saying when I say that? If you imagine in this episode, Adam can't get out the vehicle, something goes wrong with the oxygen and he fails to get out, what do you think is going to happen after that? What do you think is the next moment? How does the flow of time flow from there onwards? Thanks a lot, Sharon. So think about Adam in the situation. Where would his shoes be? Where would his head be? Would he be close to the steering wheel, or having failed to exit, would he have followed the air pocket as far as it went? Now, you're only going to appreciate those questions by really watching those two Mythbusters episodes. They are in the description. The links are in the description. When you watch those episodes, just think to yourself, okay, what if he'd failed to exit? Where would you expect to find him, right? Given how you're seeing him try to escape. So if he couldn't escape, where would you expect to find him, right? So I wanna sort of just suggest that if I'm not quite sure why I don't have it here. If one of the Adventures with Purpose divers was sent to go and retrieve Adam from the vehicle, in this scenario, Adam doesn't come out, where do you think they're going to find him? Do you think they're going to find him behind the steering wheel? Right? And if not, is that suspicious? Let me say that again. If you imagine Adam in a simulation simply not getting out, where does he end up? If Adventures with Purpose had to rescue this Mythbuster, where would he find him? Again, where would his shoes be? Where would his head be? Would he be close to the steering wheel, or having failed to exit, would he have followed the air pocket as far as it went? So I want to conclude with a fascinating intertextuality. It's fascinating to me because of how it challenges us to think about thinking. Bear in mind, like I refer to this channel as the critical thinking true crime channel, right? I find the way we think really interesting. It's just interesting to think the lines that our thought processes follow. And so think about this. Think about how fragmented and limited our human understanding is when we try to think backwards, right? True crime is often about that. True crime is often, okay, so we know the end result, someone died, or we've got these clues. But I think a part we often forget is we thinking backwards. We're not following the events as they proceed chronologically. We jumping backwards through all of that, and we sort of plonk ourselves into the situation. We go, oh, what happened here? It's very fragmented. It's very disconnected, right? Do you follow what I'm saying? So I think we think we're being reasonable and rational when we try to think backwards, and I think we often aren't. So if you think about it, in other words, how well can we think in hindsight about the original circumstances? Ever seen the movie Sully? Right, this is a screen grab from the movie Sully, and we're going to explore this idea of hindsight briefly just as we go through this. So when Sully was interrogated on protocols and procedures and his decisions, obviously under duress, it was found that he could have acted more efficiently and effectively. Any of you here watched the movie Sully? Deborah says, yes, I saw it. Good. So you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So, he was like put on trial. You know what? I think you could have done much better. And so Charles Porter says, you know what? Human piloted simulations show that you could have made it back to the airport. So Sully says, no, they don't. In other words, no, those simulations don't show that. These pilots were not behaving like human beings, like people who are experiencing this for the first time. So now if we come back to what I've just sort of showed you with the Mythbuster thing, you might say, yeah, that is what Kiely experienced. It's actually not. It's not even close, because Adam expected that to happen, and he had a strategy in place. Kiely didn't expect it to happen. And I don't know if she had a strategy in place. She may have come up with one, but it's totally, totally different. And that's what this is about. Sully says, these pilots were not behaving like human beings, like people who are experiencing this for the first time. Charles Porter says, well, they may not be reacting like you did. Sully says, immediately after the bird strike, they are turning back for the airport, just as in the computer sims, correct? Porter says, that's correct. Sully says, they obviously knew the turn and exactly what heading to fly, meaning in advance. They did not run checks. They did not switch on the APU. Porter says, yeah, but they had on all the same parameters that you faced. Let me just bring in this image. If you're not sure what this is all about, I'm sure you do now. So Sully says, no one warned us. No one said, you're going to lose both engines at a lower altitude than any jet in history, right? I don't know if you guys know, this jet flew into a flock of birds, or flock of birds flew into the jet. And so the situation the pilots were presented with was quite sort of unique. It was basically, okay, guys, you've lost both your engines and it's at a lower altitude than any jet in history. What are you going to do now? Oh, just be cool. Just make a left turn for LaGuardia, like you're going to back to pick up the milk. These are Sully's words. He said, this was a dual engine loss at 2,800 feet, followed by immediate water landing with 155 souls on board. No one has ever trained for an incident like that. No one. And in a weird way, the people judging him and interrogating him weren't really moved by that. They were like, so, you didn't make the right decision. And so he said, okay, can you tell me how many practice runs they had? So basically, he was shown a simulation that showed the plane hitting the geese or the birds, whatever it was, and then turning and making it back to the airport. So he was basically shown you could have saved the plane. You could have landed more effectively. You could have flown more efficiently. You could have done this better. So he said, okay, can you tell me how many practice runs these pilots had where you put in all the data and then they were able to land successfully? And Elizabeth Davis answered 17. There were 17 practice runs before they succeeded. Davis said the pilot who landed at Teterboro had 17 practice attempts before the simulation we just witnessed. Well, just like Sully, Kiely had one run, and it was at night. So the problem with thinking in hindsight is that we go into the situation with a key ingredient that our subject lacked, which is foresight, and that makes all the difference. I think in the same way that you say, I don't think that she got drunk, or I don't think she drank and drive, well, because you know what the outcome is. She didn't know what the outcome was. You would assume that because you've lived your life without incident, that your life is going to continue to go without incident. You're not going to assume that something so terrible, catastrophic, and alien to your experience is going to happen, right? She's not going to assume that's going to happen, but you know that because you know the story in hindsight. Mel Stiller says, I think it was a flock of geese. So that's my spiel. I hope you found it quite interesting. It's basically just saying that I think it's very likely that Kiely got out of the driver's area and moved ultimately to this area. And that's why she was found in this area, which then sort of makes you wonder, was it really that suspicious? If you look at this image here, I think that is, and there they are bringing the tarpaulin. I think they are doing that to cover up particularly that area. So this is quite a good view in showing what I think the driver, the steering wheel would be there, right? And I think Kiely, as you can see, is here. And then I think her feet or shoes are in this position, sort of in that position. Now, if you think about it, she broke that window. I assume she broke that window. So her body's already orientated from feet this side, face this side. But then she couldn't get out that window, so she started following the air pocket, got to here, and ultimately ended up there, right? So you just sort of say, is that suspicious? Is that how you'd expect it to happen, or is that suspicious? So I'm going to follow up this live, probably tomorrow, with a episode just dealing with that statement, she was in the trunk. Does it mean that she was somewhere down here, or where was she? So yeah, so that is it. That's really just what I wanted to communicate to you guys. Wow, and all under 1 hour. Alan Gregory says not suspicious. Yeah. So Kai Cat says AWP would have to come looking for me. I think me as well. Astute Recruit says, thank you, Nick. Excellent thought process. Let's have a look at the poll. So I think if you voted in the beginning, you might want to change your vote. But 37% say, no, I don't think I would have survived. That's double the amount who say yes. I still think it's quite a lot of you who say, yes, I would survive. I think if you watch the links that I put in the description, especially the Mythbuster links, you may feel differently. I think the easiest way to survive is if you go into the water with the windows down. That's going to be your best chance. If you go into the water with a windows up, but with manual windows, then you've still got a chance. But if you go into the water with inside an electric vehicle, that vehicle instantly becomes a cage, and your first priority becomes, well, how do I get out of my car? And it's filling up with water. I can't get out my car. I can't turn it on. I can't open the doors. They're locked. I can't, what's the word? I can't open the windows. I'm not 100% sure whether when a vehicle, a modern vehicle, battery is off and it's been locked, so the vehicle is locked and now you turn the battery off or you disconnect the battery, is it going to be unlockable? I'm talking about if you just pull the handle. I don't really know the answer to that, but even so, even if you could, the Mythbusters episode showed just how hard it is to open a door underwater, because you've got to wait for the pressure to equalize, and that's a long 1 minute wait. Okay, so that's about it. Pauline says, what was the number 6 clue? The number 6 clue is the shoes, and the fact that the shoes basically tell us which way Kiely was oriented. In other words, her shoes are facing or almost pointed towards the steering wheel, and her face is pointing the other way, the same direction where the passenger window broke. And to me, that indicates she was trying to get out and following the air pocket. That's to me what the shoes indirectly show. Yeah, definitely. Dr. Rob Allen says, I do feel bad for the diver who saw her first. You could see it in his face. Definitely, yeah. Soul Rune says most of us would have went down with that car. I think, if you put yourself in the Mythbuster thing, you might say, no, I think I could have held my breath longer. But I think if you take all of that and you think about how much harder it was for Kiely, it was basically unsurvivable. if in that situation, you can almost say being intoxicated or sober wouldn't really have mattered. Connie says, I'll watch the Abyss movie, though. Got that on standby. It's a really, really good movie. There's a pretty harrowing scene in it, but it's definitely a good movie. Vivian says, in the dark, you could swim the wrong way and drown. Yvonne has just answered your question there. I do think she was fighting for her life. Yeah. Thanks, Cheryl. So I'm not going to take it further than that. I just wanted to do a quick video, 1 hour. I saw another channel did 10 hours. I don't know if I would ever be able to do that. 10 hours, wow. Deborah says, why don't you guys hit the like button? So I'll be taking this analysis that I've done here a little bit further and in a little bit of a different way in this episode with this particular title image. So keep your eyes open for that. Let's just take a couple of questions here. Sharon says, join us tomorrow. Sharon, I don't know if it'll be a live, though. It might just be a sort of an episode. We'll see, though. We'll see. Katie says, water is such a massive variable. Unapologetically me, a great avatar name, says, I always come here to get grounded. First time I've ever made it to a live. Well, it's really good to see you and welcome, and I hope we see you again. So I think on that positive note, I'm going to leave it. Thanks for joining me here. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys next time.